Is it your time to be a voice and not an echo? Do you find yourself as a woman in leadership asking for permission or looking for validation that your ideas are right? Maybe you pre-qualify when you're challenging or hesitating. And if you have to sit through one more session of mansplaining, are you ready to just go out of your ever-loving mind? Because if you are, then you absolutely need to continue to hang out with me and Tiffany O today. I'm Tammy Alvarez, the founder of the Career Winner Circle, where we empower business leaders to make a big impact and love every Monday again. And Tiffany O is one of our master coaches, and she is relaunching Own Your Power, which is a women and leadership series designed to help female leaders thrive. Tiffany, I am so excited that we're going to be doing this together.
I am too, Tammy. I think this program is ideal for women that are either emerging leaders, they're either at the top of their game, or they're new, great functional leaders, but have just inherited a team. I think this program is going to really help them to strengthen their voice and their presence as they're leading their team.
Absolutely. And today we have a big announcement at the end of our conversation. So make sure you stay tuned in. But the first thing we're going to talk about is the importance of strengthening your voice.
Yeah. You know, Tammy, the big why, right? We always want to start with why this really matters. We think about the power of voice impacts our authenticity and our ability to inspire trust in our teams, right? So that vulnerability-based trust is so important with finding our voice and getting people to stand behind us. Effective communication, when we don't have that, that voice enables us to be able to really crystallize our vision and build coalition around the vision. When we're able to do that, then we can be persuasive and add influence. How about decision making as a big why? The lack of confidence here means that we won't be able to empower and inspire confidence in others around the decisions that we do make. In challenging situations, we need people to feel like we have command and understanding of the situation and they'll get behind us. And the last piece of this is, in terms of our why, Tammy, is around innovation and creativity. In this VUCA world that's ever changing, we always have to be agile and be innovative and inspire innovation. Our unique perspective, asking the right questions at the right time, when we have our voice, we can really set our teams up for success and they can be future forward.
That is amazing in terms of the reasons why having that powerful voice is so important for us as leaders, for our teams, and for the organizations that we represent. So let's go into and talk about what are three things that our viewers can take away today to start to do to strengthen their voice.
Yeah. So, how about this? This whole thing around self discovery, personal growth, right? Think about our values and stand on the platform of our values, understanding what really truly matters to us is a foundation for finding our voice. Self awareness, right? We understand how important that is. Building self confidence. That is so critical as we think about finding our voice. And if you don't understand what your strengths are, Cammy, this is the time for us to take a moment and pause and invest in some of those assessments and then calibrate those assessments to our team. Then we have a voice, and then we also have a collective team voice.
Yeah.
That's number one. I think number two is around developing strong communication skills. But before I jump to that, Tammy, do you have a story around finding your voice and this self confidence and self belief?
Yeah, I think I had the imposter syndrome before it was a thing. And often being the only woman on the around the leadership table and the youngest and really feeling over my skis all the time. But yet I still had to lead from a position of strength. I still had to go in and pretend I wasn't terrified. And I still had to go in and ask the hard questions, represent my team, and drive the results for my organization that I needed to happen. So whether that was internally trying to, remove the nonsense and get things moving forward, whether that was negotiating with clients when I was leading sales teams. So being able to be authoritative in,
Mhm.
especially in times where you're not 100% sure, is magic. Because it's amazing. If you sound confident, even if you're not 100% sure, people will just fall in line. It's funny. My partner Steve is like, "You were totally wrong there, but you really did a great job selling that, and you were very confident in all the things." And not saying you want to go out there and just be wrong all the time, but we wait for perfection. We wait till we're sure, and we wait until we've got that safety before we take that big step. And some of us wait for confidence to come in our speaking and in our voice. And the reality is, what I found is that the confidence fairy is not going to come. They're not going to sprinkle pixie dust over your pillow while you're sleeping. Confidence comes from taking action. And when you start to take those small actions in terms of really owning your voice and strengthening your voice, it starts to become addicting because you see how much of an impact you can make.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that you mentioned the fairy dust.
Yeah,
Well, let's calibrate fairy dust and call it practicing self affirmations, right? Sprinkle our own fairy dust,
there we go.
right? Tell ourselves as we start to build confidence, we have to practice talking, speaking in a positive way to ourselves, telling ourselves, "You got this.
Yeah,
You own this room."
that's
Right?
it.
Get rid of the negative self talk and celebrate our accomplishments. When we do that, then I think we can stand a little bit taller. And I love it. I always think of like of Wonder Woman, she has that strong power pose.
Oh, yeah,
She's got her, right? So if you don't have that, practice that in the mirror before you go into your next big meeting.
that's
Get your power pose and you'll find your voice as well.
it. That is awesome. So what's number two?
Okay, step number two. This is around effective communication. So I think there are a couple of pieces to this. One, people need to feel that they have been really heard, right? So we have to practice active listening. That means we can't really be thinking about what we're going to say next if we're in the moment. And I think we have to stay in the moment and we have to use curiosity to really drive and gain a greater understanding. When we're able to do that and we can respond to people's perspectives, we strengthen our communication styles. I think the next piece of communication is around our ability to be clear and concise, right? So giving back what we heard, this is what I think I heard, but making it concise, make our point. And then sometimes we have to summarize it, come back and summarize that. And then the last piece around this communication is really practicing through public speaking. If you're not in Toastmasters and you're not a public speaker, being a good public speaker is not around personality, right? This is not around being, I'm a shy person or an outgoing person. To be an effective leader, you must have presence and command the room. When it's your time to stand and present, you need to be able to speak and present those numbers with confidence. You need to be able to tell your why and build coalition around your vision. For the 5 minutes you have of fame, own that thing.
Take
And
it.
so if you need to, if you need to, if you need practice with that, then join Toastmasters or pregame with your team. I found that to be hugely effective. Some of the best decisions that we ever were able to make as a team really came from our ability to sort of one pregame with a pitch deck. So you get really good. If you don't know how to make a pitch deck, get your executive assistant or hire a virtual assistant to make one for you with every time you need to go in front of a group. You run that pitch deck with your most prickly stakeholders, the ones that are the most difficult, the ones you think that would push back in a meeting and challenge your voice.
Yes.
Meet with them first, one on one. Get their feedback. Work that into your deck. Then you take it and you shop that around. Then you have your big meeting. And when you stand in front of the room, you're going to stand with confidence because you know that you've listened, you've done the roadshow, and
Mm,
you've captured everyone's voice. So now the story you're telling is not just your story, but you're telling a collective story of all your stakeholders. That builds confidence in your voice.
absolutely. And I know you've got tons of stories about being concise and some feedback that you've gotten in your history as well as your learning. And I just want to add one thing before I'm going to ask you to share your story, and that is as you are trying to really strengthen your voice and understand how you want to show up. If you only cover off on three things, you've won.
Mm.
The first thing is why. The second thing is what. And then the third thing is, or the first thing is why, second thing is, so what, and now what? Because we want to have that purpose and that next steps and really that contextual story behind it so people can really understand what the point of the conversation really is, right? Versus what the words are being said, which are not always the same thing. So Tiffany, share one of your stories on how you got good at this.
Oh, I'll never forget. This happens in healthcare. So in healthcare, it's not just one department. These are multidisciplinary teams.
Mm,
Stakeholders vary from the bedside to the boardroom.
mm,
They all must be treated with sensitivity. And when issues come up, it's never just your team's ideas that are the solutions to the problems. I'll never forget we were trying to solve a big problem as it related to attrition, as it related to not just attrition, but we thought people were going to be rift. And
right.
that came up, and that's a very sensitive subject you don't want floating down the hallways.
Right.
I'll never forget
You're
my
already going
team,
there anyway.
small.
You don't want to make it any worse, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So my team, we noticed that, this was a big issue that really hadn't been, thoroughly addressed. And we were trying to solve for some of the bigger problems that we couldn't fix. So we got together and we, figured out what were the biggest pain points. We got together with some of the key leaders, talked about how we might position that. What could we do to get ahead of that? How do we prepare people? And how do we avoid a rift situation when we have 55,000 employees in the health system? And so that started with a pregame meeting with the team. Then that moved to the operational sponsor. Then that moved to the executive sponsor. Then that moved to a small group of HR leaders. Then it moved to a larger steering committee, right? By that point, we had baked and baked and figured that thing out. By the time the word RIF came out of my mouth at the table, it wasn't a surprise and people weren't concerned about where we were going with that. We had already solved the problem. So
Yeah.
again, all of that was just an example, a real life example of how some difficult problems, I think you can avoid mm, the hallway banter
Yeah,
that can come and
totally.
challenge your voice when you get everyone on the same page. You pre-game that everyone has had an opportunity to weigh in. Then when you need to present, you can stand in front of the room confidently with the one, two, or three solutions that the team have come up with.
Love it. Love it. Number three.
Oh, number three, this is about finding your authentic leadership style. And so when we talk about authenticity, this isn't someone else's journey, someone else's story. This
Mm,
isn't someone else's why that you're parroting. This is yours.
mm,
And when you find, we talked about value earlier, right? Really finding your strengths and your values and building on those. We talk about your authentic leadership style. You have to discover what that is, right? What's your core leadership style? Are you going to be that open, approachable, values-based, principled leader? If so, own
right.
that, right? If
Yeah.
you're the servant leader, own that, right? And then be really, really clear about that. Embrace your individuality and make sure you can back up all of that with your story, the journey that got you here. When people really understand you and why you have adopted and embraced a particular leadership style, they're more likely to rally around you. And you're more likely to stand in your decisions because they're backed by your values and principles. And here's the last thing about finding your authentic leadership voice. Sometimes you need a mentor or a coach. Seek mentorship. Learn from experienced leaders as you're calibrating your own individual style.
Mm,
Maybe something that's a little more natural to you, you need to tweak a little bit. For example, I remember early in my career, my first time leading a team, Tammy, I was 18 years old. So my voice, an 18-year-old is a know-it-all.
of course you
Fine,
did, right? Absolutely.
right? So what did I know at 18 years old about leading a team of adults nonetheless, right? So I was thrust into a role without really being prepared. I
Mm,
needed mentorship, coaching, because of course you have to sometimes that natural thing about you. I was put into that role because of the natural abilities, but
Mm,
I needed some refinement. And
absolutely.
so if you're finding yourself needing refinement, get a coach or mentor. It doesn't mean you're not a good leader. You're just finding your authentic leadership style. And when you get there, you're going to stand on that platform and your voice will be powerful and strong.
Absolutely. And as I was coming through the leadership ranks, I had the benefit of being part of top talent programs and leadership development and emerging leader programs where we're forced to do these things, and get that critical feedback. And it was interesting because as I was going through that process, they would videotape you and it would be horrible, right? It'd be so bad. And that would really help you gain your perspective on body language, tone, your trigger words, like was my big one. And then I moved on to that was my next favorite one. And so I always have these little trigger words I love to pull in during when I was actually making a speech versus just having a normal conversation. Even today, in the privacy of your own home, it's so much easier to sit there in front of a video camera, just riff and do your thing as if you were in that boardroom or that conference room, and then play that back to see what you look like. So if you're not willing to have that coach or mentor because you're not sure that you're ready to have other people see all the, ridiculousness, then practice at home. And if you want some really good comedic entertainment, go hit the Coral Consulting Group YouTube channel. You'll see some of my original videos from 6 years ago, and they're absolutely horrible. And I keep them up there to remind myself of where I came from and also to give everybody else some confidence that yes, you too can be this bad. So, and then over time,
Uh,
get better.
Tammy, as I heard you telling your story, since you were being so vulnerable with us, last week I had an experience in which I had to not be a hypocrite. I had to, this the advice we give our clients, we also need to live this on a regular basis. And so I was thinking about, I started playing golf a couple of years ago. And recently, one of my golf buddies videotaped me. And my golf swing was hilariously terrible.
Uh-huh.
Like, I was getting air and hitting. The sound of the ping is beautiful. However, Tammy, I looked like my everything was off.
Off and out of
So,
alignment. Yeah. Yes.
so I had a coach over for dinner, and he says, "Get a club. Let me see your swing." I'm like, "Oh, I don't really want you to see my swing. It's really bad." I knew it was bad, and he says, "Let me see your swing." And so, in that moment, I said, "Either you're going to embrace the fact that you have a mentor willing to invest in you, which means you have to get really vulnerable about you.
Yeah.
And you have to show him what you've got so that he can make you better." So in that moment, I got my club out and we're standing together and he's fixing my posture and gave me a pro tip to improve the swing. And I have to tell you now, I'm a lot more confident. So when I go out with my buddy next week, I'm going to show my new moves.
That
But
is
my point
awesome.
is that there's something about having a mentor or a coach, and you have to be completely vulnerable with them to find your off. That's what authenticity
That's
to
right.
me is
Absolutely.
really about,
Yeah.
being real. And when we do that in a work setting, and it's okay to be vulnerable with your peers, with your colleagues, and with others, it helps us to just become better leaders and shows them how they can also find their voice.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's summarize those 3 points again so everyone has crystal clear takeaways from this because I've got a really exciting announcement that I want to make.
All right. So, number one, as we start thinking about voice, the first thing we want people to do, build confidence and self belief, right? Practice self love, self care, prioritize your physical, mental well being, all of that. Embrace your strengths, figure out what those are. Number two, develop strong communication skills. Practice in the mirror, practice with video, practice with your buddies, effective listening. That'll help us to be able to calibrate our responses in a way that shows that we really understand others. And then, third, find your authentic leadership style. Invest in yourself, build on your values, find a mentor if you need one. Those would be our 3 tips for finding and strengthening your voice.
Awesome. And everyone can start to do that right away with some of the ideas that we've been able to share today. And so, as you're listening to this and as you're thinking about how you're showing up, I want you to close your eyes for a minute and imagine the next time that you've got that big meeting, that you are walking in there confident. You know that you've got the command of the room. You have the ability to persuade and to inspire with authenticity so that people take immediate action, because that is the way you're able to make an impact. And all of this is just one step away. What I'm excited to announce is that Tiffany and I are relaunching the Own Your Power Masterclass. It's an 8-week masterclass for women, and that starts on October 1st, but pre-sale starts soon. So make sure that you get in there, get on that wait list, get all the goodies, because you are an action taker and we reward action takers by clicking all the links below in this post. We have got 4 more power moves that we cannot wait to share with you, but those are going to come a little bit later. So meanwhile, I am so thankful that you're here. Welcome to the family and the community. Tiffany, what other words do you have to send us off today?
So Tammy, I'm excited about the relaunch of the Own Your Power program too. Listen, if you're on the call with us today, we can't wait to meet you in person. You're going to find a safe place with your peers to unleash what it is that's been holding you back from really owning your voice and finding your own power. So we look forward to meeting you. Join us in the next several segments where we talk about the other 4 power moves, and we hope to see you in our masterclass. If needed, if you want a one-on-one clarity call with me, feel free to book that in the link below as well. See you soon.